The room felt too quiet, too arranged. Miss Marple entered, steady steps. She carried her knitting bag close. Her eyes moved across the tables. Beatrice Morton stood at the front, clipboard ready, ruler in hand, her voice sharp. "Attendance first. Names will be checked." She called each member. Mabel Finch raised her hand. Hazel Trent nodded. No words. Hester Vale smiled, nervous. Edith Pike whispered, "Present." Lucy Daring waved quickly. Lady Bantry arrived late, noisy as always. The Reverend and Mrs. Clement stood together, polite, composed. Beatrice ticked each name, her tone cold. "Good, all here. We begin." A wicker basket sat on the table, brown paper packages inside, each tied with string, numbers written in black ink. "Draw your number. Take your yarn." Beatrice passed around a smaller basket. Members pulled slips of folded paper. Mabel smiled as she checked hers. Lucy bit her lip. Confused. Hazel stiffened, eyes avoiding. Edith muttered, "Number 3. Miss Marple's turn. She unfolded her slip. Number 12. She reached for her package, the paper soft in her hands. Mabel unwrapped hers quickly. "Lovely shade, isn't it?" she said. She lifted a bright skein, grinning, her bag wide open, notions spilling, needle oils, samples, shop supplies. Beatrice's voice cut again. "Keep order, each swatch, 20 rows. Evenness matters." Her ruler tapped hard on the wood. Lucy winced. "I'll try," she whispered, her yarn rough. She rubbed it between her fingers. "It's stiff, hard to work." Hazel ignored her, bent over lace, hands quick, face blank. Lady Bantry leaned close to Hester. "Her cook ruined dinner again," she muttered. Hester laughed weakly. Her eyes stayed on the tea table. Miss Marple set down her bag. She took out her needles. A small vest pattern, plain stitches. Work began. The hall grew louder. Voices mixed with the click of needles. Small jokes passed, but tension clung. Smiles too sharp, silences too heavy. Hazel shifted. Her eyes flicked toward Mabel. Then away. Miss Marple noticed. Beatrice walked slowly around the tables. Her ruler tapped shoulders. "Correct your tension. Watch your edge." Her tone clipped. Each woman straightened. Hands moved faster. The Reverend leaned toward Mrs. Clement. "Feels stricter than a sermon," he muttered. She hushed him quick. Miss Marple glanced at Hazel again, still stiff, still avoiding eyes, her shawl spread wide, her jaw tight. Beatrice cleared her throat. All must follow rules tonight. Her ruler struck the table. Then it happened. A folded note slid across the polished wood. It moved between two hands. Quick, hidden. Miss Marple's eyes caught it. She froze. The paper rested near Hazel's work, unopened. The sound of needles filled the silence. But the note stayed, unseen. Miss Marple tightened her grip on her yarn. Her mind turned sharp. Something more than knitting had begun. The folded note lay still, and Miss Marple's eyes did not leave it. Beatrice raised her hand. "No nuts. Not ever." Her ruler struck the table. The sound echoed. Sharp. "All refreshments tonight are nut-free. Every ingredient checked." She glared toward the tea table. Hester Vale straightened, hands tight on a tray. "Yes, Mrs. Morton," Hester said quickly. "I checked every label, twice." Her voice wavered, her smile thin. "Check again," Beatrice snapped. "No mistakes, not even a trace." Lady Bantry leaned back. "Honestly, you'd think we were in court," she muttered. Mrs. Clement hushed her. "This is serious, Dolly." Hester flushed. "I was careful. Butter sealed, flour certified, jam homemade." Her words tumbled fast. She pointed to a handwritten card. "Strictly nut-free," it read. Beatrice nodded once. "Good. But remember, my life depends on it." The room grew still. Lucy Daring's chair creaked. Her hands tugged at her yarn. "It feels wrong," Lucy whispered. Her fingers rubbed the strand. "It's sticky, not soft like the others." Hazel looked up. "Perhaps you touched it with greasy hands," she said coldly. Lucy shook her head. "No, I just opened it." Her cheeks reddened. Mabel Finch leaned closer. "Some linens are stiff. It softens later. Don't fret, dear." Her tone sounded kind. Her eyes watched carefully. Beatrice cut in. "Every swatch must be neat. No excuses." Her ruler tapped again. 20 rows, no less. No uneven edges. Edith Pike cleared her throat softly. "Some yarn behaves strangely. At first." Her quiet voice trailed. Few heard her. Beatrice did not. Miss Marple worked on calmly. Her needles clicked steady. Her eyes, however, scanned faces. Hester still nervous. Lucy unsettled. Hazel rigid. Mabel too smooth. The Reverend entered from the darts room. "Tea smells good," he said. His voice broke the silence. Inspector Slack laughed in the background. The thud of darts carried in. Lady Bantry rolled her eyes. "At least someone's relaxed." Mrs. Clement frowned at her. Beatrice ignored them all. She walked around slowly. Her ruler pointed here, tapped there. "Too loose, correct it. Too tight. Watch your hands." Lucy muttered under her breath. "This yarn isn't normal." Her voice trembled. She rubbed it again. The stickiness clung. Miss Marple tilted her head. Her eyes narrowed. Something off. But she said nothing yet. Hester brought cups to the tables, her steps unsteady. "Tea's almost ready," she whispered. She glanced at Beatrice, anxious. Beatrice's eyes hardened. "Do not serve until I check." Hester froze, tray in hand. The knitting resumed. Needles clicked again. But unease spread. Too many eyes darting, too many hands fidgeting. Beatrice halted suddenly. Her ruler lifted high. Her voice cut the air. "Someone's lying. 2 women, 1 pattern. Old resentment." Hazel Trent shifted in her seat. Her shawl stretched tight between her hands. Her eyes lowered, but her voice sharp. "She never forgave me," Hazel murmured. The words slipped out. Only Miss Marple caught them. "What was that, Hazel?" Lady Bantry asked. Hazel shook her head quickly. "Nothing, just talking to myself." Miss Marple's needles clicked steady. Her gaze moved to Mabel Finch. The shopkeeper smiled, too wide. The smile held no warmth. "You're doing lace again," Mabel said, her tone light, her eyes cold. "You always return to lace, even after—" "Well," Hazel stiffened. "Yes, lace, at least I design my own." Her words cut fast. The other women looked away. They knew the story. Hazel's pattern once disqualified. Beatrice had ruled against it, claimed it was copied. The wound never healed. Mabel leaned back. "My shop sells patterns, true. But at least mine sell well." Her voice sugar-coated, her smile thin. Hazel's jaw tightened, her stitches faster, harsher. "Your shop sells other people's work, not yours." The air thinned. Conversation slowed. Even Lady Bantry kept quiet. Miss Marple's eyes stayed calm. Her thoughts ran sharp. 2 women, 1 rivalry, a wound deeper than yarn. Edith Pike shifted slightly, her needles steady, her face blank. But her eyes flickered toward Hazel. Something unspoken there. Lucy Daring whispered to Hester, "Why do they fight like this?" Hester shook her head. Old anger, long past, still alive. Hazel stabbed her needle into the yarn, her breath short, her face set. Mabel watched her closely, her hands too still, her bag open beside her, bottles glinting inside. Miss Marple adjusted her spectacles. She said nothing. Her eyes took in each gesture, each frown, each forced smile. Inspector Slack's voice carried in faint from the darts room. "Bullseye!" he shouted. Laughter followed, the sound rough, out of place. The Reverend chuckled faintly. Slack winds again. His wife hushed him quickly, but the women at the table stayed tense. Hazel's hands shook slightly, her lace uneven. She pulled the thread harshly. Beatrice took everything. Hazel muttered, her tone low, her eyes on her work. She said I cheated. She ruined me. Mabel smiled again, but the smile wavered. She pressed her lips. Her eyes slid away. Miss Marple noted it all, quiet, watching, each clue stored, each gesture marked. Hazel bent closer to her shawl. Her lips moved, the words almost lost. She deserved worse. A scream, not loud, but sharp enough. Every head turned. Edith Pike stood stiff. Her knitting bag hung open, the sides slit wide. Yarn spilled across the floor. "My bag," she whispered, her face pale. "My bag has been cut." Chairs scraped. Women leaned forward. Eyes widened. Mabel gasped. "Who would do that?" Hazel shook her head. "Who brings knives to a club?" Edith bent low. Her hands trembled. She gathered yarn quickly, her voice low. "My scissors are gone. They were here. Now gone." The room buzzed. Whispers rose. Eyes darted. Hands clutched at bags. Lady Bantry muttered, "First rules. Now this." "What's next?" Mrs. Clement frowned. "Be serious, Dolly. This is no joke." Hester moved toward Edith. "Maybe they slipped inside?" She searched the table. Her hands brushed the floor. Nothing. Beatrice's ruler smacked the wood. "Enough chatter. Who touched her bag?" Her eyes scanned the tables. No one answered. Only silence. Lucy shifted in her chair, her face red. "I didn't touch anything," she blurted, her voice too quick, too sharp. Hazel raised a brow. "Strange. No one asked you." Lucy stammered. I saw nothing. Truly." She twisted her yarn again, the strand still sticky. Her fingers rubbed nervously. Inspector Slack entered from the darts room. "What's all this noise?" His tone gruff. He looked around. Edith held up her bag. "Cut. Scissors missing." Slack stepped closer. He inspected the slit. The cut neat. Precise. Not accidental. "Nothing else gone?" he asked. Edith shook her head. "Only scissors, the good ones, steel pair." Slack scanned the floor, then the tables, then the women. "Who's hiding them?" No answer. Eyes avoided him. Feet shifted. No one spoke. He sighed. Likely dropped or mislaid. He turned back toward the darts room, his tone dismissive. Not worth alarm? But the women whispered. Beatrice's eyes narrowed. Her voice cut. "Someone here plays games." Her ruler tapped sharp. "Games are dangerous." Miss Marple worked her vest calmly. Her eyes moved steady. She studied faces. Hazel too still. Mabel too smooth. Lucy restless. Hester shaken. Edith quiet. Folding her bag shut. The hum of talk dimmed. Needles clicked again. But unease lingered. Whispers would not die. Lady Bantry leaned closer to Mrs. Clement. "Strange night, isn't it?" Mrs. Clement whispered back. "Stranger than it should be." Lucy bent to her bag, her hands clumsy. She pulled at the strap. A sound clinked. Metal, hard, clear. Every eye turned. From Lucy's bag slipped a pair of scissors. They clattered onto the floor. Lucy froze. The missing scissors lay at her feet. The scones looked safe. Too safe. Hester Vale carried the tray forward. Her hands shook. Cups rattled. She set them down quickly. "Everything is nut-free," she said, her voice thin, her eyes on Beatrice. "I checked every item." Beatrice's ruler tapped the table. "Check again. Mistakes are fatal." Her tone harsh. Lady Bantry laughed. "Oh, Beatrice, you'd scare a soldier." Her words light. But her eyes darted back at her. Not a smile. Only tension. Mrs. Clement leaned close to Bantry. "This is no game. Show respect." Bantry shrugged, but grew quiet. Hester arranged scones, jam, butter. She repeated, All safe. All clean. Her shoulders sagged as she stepped back. Beatrice inspected the tray. She lifted a spoon. She sniffed the butter. She checked the jam. Her lips pressed tight. Proceed, she said at last. The women reached for food. Tea poured. Small chatter returned, but eyes still watched Beatrice. Mabel Finch moved toward her bag. Before we eat, she said sweetly, I brought something useful for the club. She lifted a small brown bottle. Needle conditioner, stops squeaks, helps glide. Her smile warm, too warm. She set it on the table. Anyone may use it, just a dab. Hazel frowned. Strange timing, food on the table and you bring oils. Her voice sharp. Mabel ignored the sting. She turned to Miss Marple. See, safe, harmless lanolin, nothing more. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed. She leaned slightly. She sniffed. A faint trace drifted out. Not wool, not lanolin, something warmer, nutty. Her needles paused. Her gaze dropped to the bottle again. Her mind marked the detail. But she stayed silent. Lucy tugged her yarn again. Still sticky. She rubbed harder. It's wrong, won't soften, she whispered. Edith Pike worked steadily. She said nothing. Her eyes flickered once to the bottle, then back to her knitting. Beatrice sipped tea, her face unreadable. She spoke again. Remember, swatches checked at the end, no excuses. Lady Bantry rolled her eyes. Rules, rules, rules. You sound like Parliament. But her hands shook as she lifted her cup. The Reverend chuckled faintly. Better Parliament than the gallows. Mrs. Clement frowned. Enough of that. Mabel tapped the bottle again. It helps, truly. I use it in the shop. Her voice low. Persuasive. Hazel muttered. You always bring shop samples. Always pushing. Her hands tightened on her lace. Miss Marple listened, needles calm. Her eyes flicked from Mabel to Beatrice, then to the faint glint of oil on the table edge. Hester served another tray, her face pale, her eyes heavy with worry. The chatter dulled. The clock ticked. All waited for Beatrice. She picked up her yarn. She rolled the end gently. Her lips parted. She moistened the strand with her tongue. Beatrice's yarn touched her lips, and Miss Marple's eyes sharpened. The cough was wrong, too sudden. Beatrice Morton dropped her needles. Her hand gripped her throat. Her face flushed red. She coughed again. Deeper this time. Chairs scraped. Women jumped to their feet. Beatrice! Lady Bantry shouted. Her voice cracked. Beatrice gasped for air. Her chest heaved. Her lips darkened. She staggered back, knocking her chair. Hester Vale screamed. Dr. Haydock! Fetch Dr. Haydock! Her tray crashed to the floor. Cups shattered. Jam spilled across the cloth. Lucy Daring pointed at the scones. It's the food. It must be the scones. Her voice high. Trembling. Her hands shook as she shoved the plate away. Hester cried harder. No, I checked them. All clean. I swear. Tears streaked her cheeks. Her hands clutched at her apron. I never brought nuts. Never. Hazel Trent froze in her chair. She stared at Beatrice, unmoving. Her lace dropped from her lap. Her mouth pressed tight. Mabel Finch rushed forward. Breathe, Beatrice. Try to breathe. She slapped her on the back. Her eyes flicked to the table. Her hand brushed near the small bottle. Beatrice wheezed. Her breath rasped sharp. Her knees buckled. She fell against the edge of the table. The ruler clattered to the floor. Edith Pike whispered, Not the food. Something else. Her voice almost lost in the noise. Miss Marple stayed still, her eyes calm. She watched every hand, every movement, every glance exchanged. The Reverend shouted, Open a window! His voice desperate. Mrs. Clement pulled at the latch. Air rushed in. It made no difference. Beatrice's eyes bulged. Her hands clawed at her neck. Her breathing shallow now. Her body shook. Lucy screamed again. "It's the jam! The jam was tainted!" She shoved the jar away. It rolled, sticky, across the table. Hester's sobs grew louder. "Stop blaming me! I checked! I checked!" Her knees gave way. She fell to the floor. Her hands covered her face. Inspector Slack ran in at last. "What's happening here?" His voice, rough, confused. He stopped dead at the sight. His mouth fell open. Dr. Haydock pushed past him. "Move! Quickly, move!" He knelt beside Beatrice, his hands quick, precise, but his face grave. "She's reacting. Severe reaction. Too strong." He pulled a vial from his case. He tried at once. No change. His jaw tightened. The room froze. Silence thickened. Eyes darted. No one spoke now. Miss Marple leaned closer to the air. She breathed in slowly. Something faint carried on the draught. Not jam, not butter, not tea. Her nose wrinkled. Her eyes narrowed. It was roasted. It was nuts. Miss Marple smelled roasted nuts in the air. The body lay still. The needles glistened. Dr. Haydock pulled back slowly. His hands shook once, then steadied. He looked at the group, his voice flat. "Severe reaction. Nothing more to do." Gasps filled the room. Lady Bantry covered her mouth. Hester wept louder. Lucy clung to her chair. Inspector Slack stepped forward. "Seal this room. No one leaves." He waved Sergeant Lake to the door. The latch clicked shut. The Reverend whispered a prayer. Mrs. Clement touched his arm, silencing him. Beatrice's body slumped awkwardly. Her yarn still wound through her fingers. Her bamboo needles lay crossed on the table. A faint shine glimmered along one shaft. Miss Marple's eyes moved there. Not food, not air. The clue lay closer. She leaned forward. She lifted one needle carefully, the tip slick. Her finger brushed the sheen. She brought it nearer to her glasses. A droplet clung, almost invisible. Round, amber in color. Her lips pressed thin. She set the needle down gently. Her mind turned quickly. Not lanolin, not polish, something else. Inspector Slack came beside her. "What's that?" he asked, his voice sharp now. Suspicion rising. "Oil," Miss Marple answered, her tone plain. But she said no more. Slack bent lower. He sniffed the tip. His nose wrinkled. He frowned. "Smells wrong," he muttered. He touched the droplet with his handkerchief. It smeared dark. His eyes narrowed. Mabel Finch leaned forward. "Lanolin, I sell it. Safe for wool. Everyone knows that." Her voice too quick. Hazel snorted. "You would say that, always with your shop samples." Her tone bitter. Lucy whispered, "It was the scones." It had to be. Her hands shook. She pushed her plate farther away. Hester sobbed harder. "I didn't poison her. I didn't." I swear Edith Pike stayed silent. Her eyes watched the needle, her lips tight. Miss Marple folded her hands. She spoke quietly. "Needles should not glisten, not this way." The room hushed. Slack looked around slowly. "Which of you touched her work?" No one spoke. Mabel shook her head. "Not me. I was serving." Her voice too calm. Hazel looked away. Her shawl pulled tighter around her. Lucy raised her hands. "I never went near her needles. Never." The Reverend stepped forward. "Inspector, surely this is an accident, a mistake." Slack snapped. "Quiet, sir." He turned back to the body. His jaw tightened. He pointed to the needles. "That shine doesn't belong." The air stayed heavy. Eyes shifted. Feet restless. He looked back at Miss Marple, her gaze steady. Her lips silent. Slack exhaled slow, his voice low. "That's not lanolin." Slack's frown deepened, and the room froze around the words. "2 tickets, same number, wrong hands." Miss Marple leaned forward. Her eyes scanned the basket, the slips of paper still inside, half folded, half opened. She picked one up, the number bold. 7. She reached for another, unfolded slowly, again. 7. Her lips pressed thin, her mind sharp. Duplicate tickets, impossible by chance. She laid both slips on the table, the ink slightly different. One darker, one slanted. Left. Her gaze narrowed, left-handed writing, not Beatrice's hand. Beatrice's number had been called aloud earlier. The group remembered. She held 7. But now, 2 7s sat here. Lady Bantry blinked. How could that happen? Misprint? Her tone unsure? Mrs. Clement shook her head. Each slip handwritten, not printed. Inspector Slack grunted. So someone copied it. Why? He scratched his chin. Miss Marple gave no answer. Her eyes flicked across the women. Lucy Daring shifted nervously, her bag half open. She chewed her lip. Miss Marple's eyes fixed on her. "Lucy," she said softly, "what did you put on your yarn?" Lucy flushed. Her words stumbled. I tried something. Just olive oil, at home. I thought it would help." The room stirred. Hazel hissed. "Reckless child. Who oils yarn with food?" Lucy's voice cracked. "I wanted it smoother. It stuck. I only tried once." Her hands trembled. "I didn't poison anyone." I swear Slack frowned. "You admit tampering with yarn?" "Yes, but only mine," Lucy said quickly. "Not hers. Never hers." Mabel Finch leaned back, her smile tight. Olive oil explains her sticky yarn, not Beatrice's death. Miss Marple's gaze stayed steady. "True. Olive oil is harmless, but it hides the question. How did Beatrice receive the wrong package?" Hazel muttered. "She took her number." Fair and square, her tone flat. Miss Marple shook her head. "Number. She received a number that was switched." Eyes darted. Whispers rose. Edith Pike looked down. Her needles moved faster, silent, but tense. Hester spoke suddenly. "I saw something. Just a moment." Someone brushed against Beatrice when she drew her slip. Her voice faltered. She stopped. "Who?" Slack demanded. Hester lowered her gaze. I don't recall. It was quick." The Reverend muttered, "So much trickery over yarn." His wife snapped, "Not yarn. Life and death." Miss Marple arranged the slips again, side by side. Her finger tapped the darker 7. This one was not hers. Silence spread, all eyes fixed on her. She spoke slowly, clear, measured. "Beatrice never drew 7. Someone gave it to her." The words hung heavy, and every face turned pale. The teapot dripped, but why oily? Hester Vale wiped the table. Her cloth came away greasy, her face pinched. "This isn't tea," she whispered. Lady Bantry leaned forward. "Grease? In tea? How absurd." Mrs. Clement frowned. "Absurd or not, look." She touched the spout. Her fingers shone faintly. Inspector Slack scowled. "Who tampered with this?" He sniffed. His nose wrinkled. "Not milk. Something stronger." Miss Marple's eyes moved slowly. The tea cozy sat damp. She lifted it gently. The embroidery caught her eye. 2 letters stitched on the side. MF initials. Clear. Her lips pressed thin. Her mind noted it. The fabric wet through. Not from tea alone. Edith Pike spoke softly. "Oil clings. Water dries. This stays." Her words carried weight. No one answered. Lucy Daring bent low. Her eyes widened. "There's something under the tray." Her hand shook as she reached. She pulled a scrap of paper, half burnt, edges black. Ash crumbled onto her fingers. Inspector Slack snatched it. He smoothed it flat. Only part remained. 1 word. "Clear." "Switch." Hazel Trent leaned forward. "Switch what? Yarn? Numbers?" Her tone sharp. Slack read again. 2 words, faint. "Switch tonight." Silence spread across the table. The phrase echoed. "Switch tonight." Mabel Finch shook her head quickly. "Meaningless. Someone's joke. Nothing more." Miss Marple looked at her, calm, silent. her eyes unreadable. Lucy bit her lip, her voice cracked. It means something, it must. Lady Bantry whispered, 2 switches? 2 tricks in one night. Mrs. Clement hushed her. Dolly, lower your voice. Hester wrung her hands. I swear the tray was clean. I swear her body trembled. Slack banged the table. Enough swearing. Someone here wrote this. He held up the scrap. Who burns notes in a tea tray? No one spoke. Only shifting feet. Avoided eyes. Tense silence. Miss Marple leaned closer to the tray. Her fingers brushed the damp cloth again. The oily feel stuck. She raised her hand to her glasses, her voice quiet, measured. Not for everyone, only for herself. Not 1 switch, 2. Her eyes scanned the group, faces pale, hands still, fear spreading. The Reverend cleared his throat nervously. This is worse than mischief. His wife snapped, Worse? It's murder. Mabel looked down, her lips pressed hard. She said nothing. Hazel muttered, Always tricks, always schemes. Her fingers clenched her lace. Lucy whispered, Why 2? Why not 1? Her voice cracked again. Miss Marple set the cozy aside, her hands folded, her eyes sharp. She whispered, clear, cold, precise. Someone planned 2 swaps. The words cut through the room, and no one dared to breathe. 3 suspects, all with shadows. Inspector Slack paced the room, his eyes hard, his tone sharp. Each of you had reason, each of you had chance. Hazel Trent looked up quickly, her face tight, her voice sharp. She humiliated me. She called me a thief. She destroyed my name. Her fingers twisted her shawl, her stitches loose, uneven. Her jaw clenched. Lady Bantry leaned forward. Strong words, Hazel. Hazel glared back. Truth, not words. Slack turned to Lucy. And you, girl. Oil on yarn. Who does that? Why? Lucy's face flushed. Her hands shook. I said already. Olive oil, only mine. I thought it would help. She looked down, her voice weak. I didn't know it was wrong, Hazel hissed. Convenient excuse. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. I didn't touch her yarn, not once. Mrs. Clement whispered to her husband. She's young, frightened, but still reckless. The Reverend nodded slightly. She hides nothing well. Inspector Slack shifted again, his eyes now on Edith Pike. You, quiet as a shadow, what's your secret? Edith's hands never paused. Her needles clicked calm, her face blank, her voice low. No secret. Just knitting, just silence. Her words cut the air. Then nothing more. Slack leaned closer. You never speak, but you watch, you hear, you see. Edith looked up once, her eyes flat, then down again, her lips sealed. Tension thickened. Hazel's breathing quickened. Lucy sniffled. Edith stayed stone still. Miss Marple's hands moved steady. Her vest rose even. Her gaze moved from one face to another. Not their words, not their tears, only their hands. Who reached where? Who touched what? Who fidgeted? Who froze? She stored each movement quietly. No sign escaped her. Hester Vale whispered, Why would any of us kill? Over patterns? Over rules? Her voice cracked. Lady Bantry replied, People kill for less. Gossip, land, even hens. Slack barked, Not gossip. This was planned. 2 switches, 2 tricks. That means intent. Hazel snapped, Then find the one who did it. Stop circling. Lucy whispered again, Not me. Not me. Her fingers knotted her yarn. Edith said nothing, her silence heavy, her eyes down. The Reverend coughed nervously. This grows darker with each hour. Mrs. Clement hushed him. Let them speak. The clock ticked loud, the group restless, but Miss Marple's eyes never blinked. She watched the smallest gestures, every twitch, every stillness. Then she saw it, Mabel Finch, her body straight, her hands folded, her eyes lowered. She had not moved for minutes. Too calm, too composed, too still. Mabel sat very still, far too still for innocence. "Shop's close. Secret's open." Miss Marple leaned toward Inspector Slack, her voice steady. "Watch Finch's shop tonight. Quietly. She will return." Slack frowned. "You're certain?" Marple nodded. "Certain." Slack called Sergeant Lake. "You take the watch. Stay hidden. Report back." Night settled. The street dark. But the order stood. Lake leaned against the wall opposite Finch's shop. He waited. Minutes stretched. Nothing moved. Then yokum, a sound. A latch turned faint. The shop door edged open. A shadow slipped inside. Lake narrowed his eyes. He crouched lower. He saw her clearly. Mabel Finch. She carried a sack, bulky. She pushed it through the door quickly. She looked over her shoulder once, then vanished inside. Lake crossed quietly. He pressed against the window frame. He peered through the crack. Mabel knelt near the counter. She opened the sack. Papers spilled out. Labels torn. Receipts crumpled. Some half-burnt. She tore more from a drawer. She stuffed them in, her movements quick, nervous. Lake's eyes fixed on one scrap. A label corner. Printed letters, faint. "Nut oil." He shifted slightly. The floor creaked. Mabel froze. Her head jerked up. She stared toward the door, her breath heavy. Lake held still. He did not move. She listened, waited, then bent down again. She struck a match. Flame lit the corner. She shoved the papers into a tin. Smoke curled faint. Ash gathered quick. But one receipt slipped free. It fell under the counter. She did not see it. Lake saw it clearly. He waited until she left. Minutes later, she rose. She closed the sack. She left quickly, locking the door behind her. The street silent again. Lake stepped forward. He slid a tool through the door gap. The lock gave way. He entered. The air smelled sharp. Ash, oil, burnt paper. He crouched at the counter. He reached under. His hand touched the receipt. He pulled it out carefully, half-burned, edges black. But the words still clear. Finch and Company groundnut oil. 1 bottle. Lake's eyes narrowed. His breath held. He folded the receipt flat. He slipped it into his pocket. He closed the shop quietly. He stepped back into the street. He looked once more at the locked door, his face grim. At dawn, he returned to Slack. He placed the receipt on the desk. Slack read it slowly, his brow furrowed, his jaw tightened. The words stood out, groundnut. The receipt showed groundnut oil, and Slack's eyes hardened. Fire leaves marks, even in ashes. Inspector Slack ordered the room opened. Sergeant Lake led him inside. The Institute oven sat cold now. Ash filled a tray. The smell lingered faint. Bitter. Slack pulled on gloves. He sifted carefully. Blackened scraps mixed with gray. Small fragments clung together. Miss Marple stepped closer, her eyes steady. "Check every piece," she said. Lake held up a curled scrap. The print faint, but visible. The word showed. "Lanolin." Slack narrowed his eyes. He picked another, half gone, a corner legible, a shop label. The rest burned away. Marple nodded once. "Deliberate. Labels destroyed to hide truth." Lake found more fragments, some edges wet with oil. He touched one. It stained his fingers. "Still slick," he muttered. Slack leaned in. "What kind?" Marple reached for a small cloth. She dabbed the fragment gently. She rubbed it between her fingers. The shine clung. Her lips pressed thin. "Not lanolin. Too heavy. Too strong," she said. Her tone calm. Slack frowned. "Then why keep the lanolin label?" "To disguise," Marple answered. "Sell ground nut oil as lanolin, a shop trick, a death trick." Lady Bantry gasped, her hand to her chest. Deception, in plain sight. Mrs. Clement whispered, "Customers trust what they buy." To betray that. Hazel muttered bitterly. She always had schemes. Her eyes narrowed at Mabel. Mabel's voice shot out. I sell nothing unsafe. Never. Her face stiff, her eyes sharp. Slack held up the scraps. Then explain these. Burned labels. Hidden oil. Why burn them at all? Mabel looked away, her lips tight, her silence heavy. Lucy whispered, I thought it was olive oil. I never guessed. Her hands shook. Her face pale. Marple touched the tray again. Her fingers brushed deeper ash. She lifted a half-charred strand. Knitting yarn, darkened, sticky. She held it up. The room watched. The strand glistened faintly. This yarn was coated, Marple said, her words simple, clear. Not softened, not safe, altered. Slack stepped closer. He studied the strand. His mouth set hard. Means she planned more than once. She prepared. Lake nodded. She tested it here first, burned the proof. The Reverend shifted uncomfortably. To use fire to cover sin. It never works. Mrs. Clement whispered back. Not sin, crime. Hazel pressed her hands together, her eyes still on Mabel. She ruined Hazel once. She'd ruin anyone. Marple stayed silent, her gaze steady, her thoughts fast. Slack dropped the scraps into a bag. He sealed it shut. He looked around the room, his voice low, firm. This was never an accident. Slack's words settled cold, and every face turned grim. Left hand, sharp pencil, price mark. Miss Marple placed the scraps on the table. Brown paper fragments lay flat. Numbers written in pencil. Her eyes narrowed. She tapped one corner. A price mark, neat, small, slanted. Same style as Finch's shop, she said. Inspector Slack leaned closer. You're sure? Marple nodded once. Exact hand, left-handed, sharp pencil, always the same stroke. He looked to Mabel, her lips pressed thin, her hands folded tight. Marple lifted the duplicate ticket, the bold 7. She set it beside another, side by side. 2 sevens, one darker, one slanted. Her voice even, her tone steady. Only one person here writes this way. Slack frowned. Left-handed. He pointed. Finch. Mabel's face stiffened. She spoke quickly. Lots of people write left-handed. That proves nothing. Hazel muttered. You always deny. Always twist. Lucy shook her head, her voice shaky. She switched them. She must have. No one else could. Marple ignored the noise. Her focus on the yarn. She picked up the glistening strand. She held it up. This yarn was treated, not softened, not cleaned, treated deliberately. She rubbed it between her fingers, her lips pressed thin again. Slack asked, treated with what? Oil, Marple said. Groundnut oil, heavy, dangerous, fatal for Beatrice. The room hushed, every eye fixed on Marple. She spoke slowly now. She reconstructed step by step. Packages prepared in Finch's shop, each wrapped in brown paper, each marked in her hand, slips placed inside. But one slip changed, one number copied. The darker 7, left-handed, pushed into Beatrice's fingers. She drew not by chance, but by design. Lady Bantry gasped. Planned from the start, Mrs. Clement whispered. Cold. Calculated Hazel nodded hard. Just like her, always watching, always plotting. Mabel shook her head. Her words rushed. I sell yarn, not death. Why accuse me? Marple stayed calm, her hands folded, her eyes steady. Because you knew her habit, she said softly. Beatrice licked the yarn, always, to smooth the end. Everyone here saw her do it. You alone used it against her. Lucy's eyes widened. I never noticed. Edith Pike whispered. I saw. Always. She did it each week. Hester Vale nodded faintly. Yes, every time. Just a small lick before she began. Slack's jaw set. He turned to Mabel. You coated that yarn. You switched her slip. You sold her death as wool. The room silent, Only the clock ticked. Mabel said nothing, her face pale, her hands shaking now. Miss Marple spoke the final link, her voice clear, cold. She knew Beatrice licked yarn. The words struck the table, and no one moved. No escape. In a small room. Inspector Slack ordered them closer, the doors locked, no one allowed to leave. The women gathered around the table, eyes tense, hands restless. Miss Marple rose slowly, her knitting laid aside, her voice calm, her tone steady. "It is time," she said. "The method must be clear, all of it." She held up the 2 slips, the duplicate 7s. Her fingers tapped them once. First step, the switch. Beatrice never chose her slip. One was copied, written left-handed, darker ink, pushed into her hand. She drew not by chance, but by plan. Hazel frowned. So she was marked from the start. "Yes," Marple replied. "From the beginning." She placed the yarn strand next. Its shine caught the light. Second step, the coating. Yarn treated with groundnut oil, not softened, not safe, harmless in appearance, fatal to Beatrice. Lucy gasped. "I thought it was olive oil. I thought—" "You were careless," Marple said, "but not guilty. Olive oil clings, yet harmless. Yours was no weapon." Lucy's face reddened. She lowered her eyes. Marple turned to Edith Pike. "You stayed quiet, too quiet, yet silence hides nothing. You knew of her habit. You saw her lick the yarn each week." Edith nodded faintly, her voice flat. "Yes, always. But I told no one." Marple's eyes moved on. "To Hazel, your bitterness showed, yet bitterness alone is not proof. You never touched her yarn, you never planned this." Hazel stiffened, her jaw tight. "But I would have wanted to." Lady Bantry whispered, "Harsh words, Hazel." Hazel muttered, "Truth." Nothing more. Marple raised her hand. "None of you swapped the tickets. None of you coated that yarn. One person alone had means. One person alone had motive. One person alone sold oil under false names." Her eyes fixed on Mabel Finch. The room stilled. Mabel's face tightened, her hands folded hard, her lips pressed shut. Marple's voice cut through. "You wrapped the package. You switched the slip. You disguised the oil. You knew Beatrice's habit. You turned it into her end." Inspector Slack leaned forward. "Well, Finch, speak." Mabel looked around, the faces hard against her. Hazel's glare, Lucy's fear, Edith's silence, Hester's tears. Her chest rose and fell. Her voice broke suddenly. "It was only a warning." The room froze. Every head turned, every hand stiff. Her cry echoed across the table, and no one breathed after the words. Fear often looks like kindness. Mabel Finch sank into her chair. Her hands trembled, her eyes darted, her voice low. "She was ending me," she whispered. "She planned to open a new shop, cheaper yarn, imported. My customers gone, my livelihood ruined." Hazel scoffed. "So you chose poison?" Mabel shook her head quickly. "Number not poison, only fear. I wanted her to panic, just once, to stop her plans, to scare her into silence." Lucy gasped. "But groundnut oil? That's death to her." "I misjudged," Mabel said. Her voice cracked. "I thought only a rash, a reaction mild enough. Not this, not death." Inspector Slack's jaw tightened. "You coated her yarn, you switched the slip, you burned the proof." Mabel's head dropped. "Yes, I did. I thought I could hide it. I thought she would live. I only wanted her afraid." Edith Pike shook her head slowly, her voice calm. "You turned resentment into action. That is more than fear." Hester Vale sobbed. "You risked us all. If one touched it by mistake, anyone—" She covered her mouth. Lady Bantry leaned back. "Well, she fooled us, and nearly killed more." Mrs. Clement's voice rose. "Nearly? She killed one already. That is not nearly. That is murder." The Reverend bowed his head. Desperation blinds, yet it damns, too. Hazel muttered sharply. You always smiled at her, always brought samples, always played kind. It was all lies. Mabel's voice hardened suddenly. Number not lies. I liked her once, but she cut me out. She judged me. She threatened my shop. I had nothing left. Lucy whispered, nothing left but murder. Silence spread. The words hung heavy. Even Slack did not speak. Miss Marple's hands stayed folded, her eyes steady on Mabel, her voice calm. You planned carefully. Duplicate slip, oiled yarn, burned labels. But planning with fear is still planning. Resentment sharpened the act. Desperation carried it through. Mabel's lips quivered. Tears welled. She deserved punishment, not death. I never wanted her dead. Hazel's tone cut. Then why coat yarn with poison? Why make the switch? Mabel broke down. Because I thought she would stop. Because I thought she would yield. Because I thought fear would work. Where reason failed. Inspector Slack stepped forward. You gambled with a life. You lost. That is the end of it. Mabel covered her face. Her shoulders shook, her words muffled. I didn't mean. The group stared, some eyes hard, some soft, none without judgment. Lucy looked at her lap. She was cruel, but she didn't deserve this. Edith whispered, No one deserves this. Miss Marple straightened, her voice final, her tone firm. Murder never stays small. Her words fell heavy, and no defense remained in the room. The needles were silent now. Inspector Slack stood tall, his voice flat. Mabel Finch, you'll come with us. Mabel rose slowly, her head low, her hands bound, her steps unsteady. Sergeant Lake took her arm. The door creaked open. They led her out. No one spoke. Only footsteps faded down the hall. The room stayed heavy, knitting bags half open, stitches unfinished, patterns abandoned. Lady Bantry sighed first, her tone uncertain. Well, that ends the evening. But her face showed no relief. Mrs. Clement whispered, Ends the evening. Yes. Not the damage. Hester Vale gathered her tray. Her hands still shook. Cups clattered as she stacked them. Her voice cracked. I never wanted this. Not in here. Not in our club. Lucy Daring rubbed her yarn between her fingers. The stickiness remained faint. Her eyes red. I thought I caused it. I thought it was my fault. Edith Pike shook her head. You were foolish, but not guilty. We all saw the truth now. Her voice, even, but her hands trembled. Hazel Trent looked down at her shawl, her voice bitter. She destroyed me once. I wished her gone, but wishing and doing are not the same. The Reverend cleared his throat softly. He looked to his wife. Words matter, thoughts matter, but tonight showed the line between thought and deed. Mrs. Clement nodded. And the price when that line is crossed. Silence spread again. Only the faint clock ticked. No one picked up needles. No one touched the yarn. Miss Marple sat still, her knitting folded neatly, her face calm, her eyes thoughtful. She spoke at last. Shops and homes, clubs and parlors, all look safe, all appear harmless, yet darkness hides, even in plain cloth. Lady Bantry looked away, her voice faint. We came for patterns. We left with death. Lucy whispered, I don't think I can come back. Hester sighed. None of us will sit the same way again. Hazel muttered, Trust breaks once. It doesn't knit back. Edith's voice stayed low. Yet we must try, or we lose everything. The Reverend nodded gravely. Forgiveness is slow, but still possible. Mrs. Clement said nothing. Her lips pressed tight. Inspector Slack returned briefly. He looked at the group. Statements tomorrow. Be ready. Then he left. The door shut hard. The members began to rise, one by one, bags closed, scarves folded, voices hushed, no chatter, no laughter, no gossip, only silence. Miss Marple remained seated. She watched them go, her mind still turning, her voice soft, almost to herself. Even cozy rooms hold shadows. Even friends hide secrets. Tonight proved it again. She folded her yarn. She placed it carefully in her bag. Her hands paused. A moment. Her eyes lowered. A sigh left her lips. Fear dressed as kindness. Kindness hiding fear. The threads looked simple, but the weave was not. The hall emptied, the air heavy, the patterns unfinished. Miss Marple rose at last. She walked toward the door, her step measured, her face unreadable. She stopped once, looked back at the silent tables, the ruler still on the floor, the needles left cold, her whisper final. Behind every quiet pattern waits another shadow. Her words lingered in the empty hall, a truth too sharp to forget.